Ironically, one of his biggest hits on YouTube is titled Murder on My Mind. YNW Melly, also known as Jamel Demons, is now in jail, charged with murdering two men he called his friends, 21-year-old Anthony Williams on the left and 19-year-old Christopher Thomas Jr.
YNW Melly, or Melly, has been seen smiling and laughing in court, but it was this moment that is now being shared online.
Really?
He appears to be praying and then blows a kiss.
YNW Melly has been locked up for the last 1,826 days. 5 long years of uncertainty, with the world waiting to see if the rapper is guilty of the horrific crime he's accused of, the premeditated murder of his 2 best friends, guys he's known since elementary school.
The 24-year-old, whose real name is Jamel Demons, stands accused of shooting and killing Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams.
Right now, Melly is in limbo, stuck in jail as he awaits a retrial after his first trial ended in a hung jury last July. But things have gotten even more complicated since then. Melly has now been hit with an additional charge of witness tampering along with his co-defendant YNW Bortland. Originally, the retrial was supposed to kick off on October 9, 2023, but it's been pushed back by several months because the prosecution keeps filing appeals. Meanwhile, Melly has been denied bond, which means he's stuck behind bars facing the terrifying possibility of the death penalty if he's found guilty.
If convicted, the young rapper could face the death penalty if 8 of the 12 jurors find him guilty.
But before all this legal drama exploded, Melly was on the brink of superstardom. He had just dropped a collab with Kanye West that sent his fame into the stratosphere.
Got mixed personalities. One day she's happy, then she's mad at me.
His songs were racking up millions of views, and he was well on his way to becoming the next big SoundCloud sensation. But then the news hit that Melly was being investigated, and suddenly everyone started picking apart his life. His lyrics were disturbingly detailed, and some of his interviews seemed to hint at dark secrets that could be connected to the crime.
My pistol caught me back and shot him twice. His body dropped down to the floor.
As he sits in jail, Melly's experience has been nothing short of brutal. He's reportedly endured inhumane treatment and borderline torture at the hands of the jail guards. Despite all this, as of today, YNW Melly hasn't been found guilty of anything. But with all the evidence and speculation swirling around, it's hard not to question whether he's truly innocent. So with all that in mind, let's take a deeper dive into this story.
He didn't come to the funeral. He came after, like, when we were sitting down eating. Came in dancing. Happy dancing.
Jamel Demons, yes, that's really his name, came into the world when his mother, Jamie Demons King, was just 14 years old. Being so young herself, Jamie raised Jamel with the help of her mother in the Orangewood Park apartments in Gifford, Florida. Growing up in this environment wasn't easy, especially as they moved around to different projects all along eastern Florida. Jamel never knew his father, which added another layer of struggle to his young life. Despite these challenges, Jamie describes her son as a sweet kid, quiet, always smiling, and with a natural love for singing and dancing. But even from a young age, Melly knew he had a darker side. This darker side began to show when he was just 9 years old. One day, he discovered a real gun that belonged to his uncle, and that discovery sparked a fascination with weapons that would follow him into his teenage years.
When I hit my head under the couch, I stayed up for a little bit. I seen some shit shining. It was a 22 revolver, a real gun. So I just walked out the house and I shot that bitch. And I couldn't hear out my ear for like a week. But then I was like, damn, this is a real gun. Like, it's death in this motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? All I gotta do is up this motherfucker and yo, just you disappear, bitch. Real shit, bro. I like how them bitches look for real. I'm in love with them bitches.
By the time he was in 7th grade, that fascination had grown into something much more disturbing. Melly brought a large knife to school and threatened not only to harm a girl but also himself. Even at this young age, it was clear that something was deeply troubling about him. Music became an escape for Melly, a way to channel his emotions into something more productive. In 8th grade, he recorded his first song, and it was clear he had a natural talent for it. In 2015, he, along with his childhood friend Christopher Thomas, who we know as YNW Juvie, and Anthony Williams, aka Sack Chaser, formed the rap crew YNW. They started dropping tracks on SoundCloud in the middle of the year, quickly gaining support from their classmates and building a local following. But just as things seemed to be looking up, Melly's dark side reared its head again. At the beginning of the 10th grade, Melly got into serious trouble. He was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of discharging a firearm in public after he fired a gun at 3 upperclassmen in a school zone. This incident got him expelled from school and locked up for a year at just 16 years old.
This is not Melly's first run-in with the law either. In 2015, the young rapper was charged for a shooting near a high school in Indian River County.
It was during this time behind bars that Melly made a crucial decision. He was going to take his music career seriously. He spent his time writing songs, a mix of love ballads and chilling murder stories, and began honing his craft. Melly's talent was undeniable. He had a unique voice, a raspy yet deep cadence that made him stand out. He also had a natural ability to control his pitch, which added another layer of depth to his music.
Girl, you know I love it when I'm next to you, riding through the 772.
After his release in October 2016, he wasted no time getting back to work. He dropped a track called 772 Love, which quickly gained local support and started to create some buzz online. But it was another song he wrote while in jail that would end up changing his life, Murder on My Mind. Melly knew this track was special. He eventually recorded it with a new beat and faster tempo and released it in March 2017. The song blew up, and Melly's social media presence skyrocketed as he focused heavily on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. But success came with its own set of challenges. Since Melly was on parole from his previous stint, the judge saw the explicit lyrics in Murder on My Mind as a violation of his parole, leading to yet another stint behind bars. Now, using song lyrics to incriminate someone is illegal in some states, and many people argue that music is just a form of art, which is a valid point. However, Melly's situation is complicated outside of his music. He's made several statements that are just too dark to ignore, adding to the controversy surrounding him. During his second stint behind bars, something interesting happened. YNW Melly's fanbase started to grow, and it became clear that people were really starting to take notice of him. The details of how much time he spent locked up are a bit hazy, but by this point, he was 17 years old. Around October 2017, his team launched a hashtag Free YNW Melly campaign, and that's when things really began to heat up. His family and friends even went all out, producing and filming a full-on music video for his song 772 Love. That video ended up going viral, racking up over 50 million views on YouTube, which only added to the buzz surrounding him. When Melly was finally released in March of 2018, he was ready to take off. He didn't waste any time. He dropped the music video for Melly the Menace and started performing live at various venues in Florida. His fame was skyrocketing. Next, he released Blue Balenciagas, which went on to pull in over 100 million views, followed by another track, Butter Pecan. Melly was living it up, traveling around the country and enjoying the freedom he had worked so hard to reclaim. Meanwhile, Murder on My Mind was becoming a massive hit, racking up millions of views and drawing in rap fans from all over the world. It wasn't just the average listener getting into Melly's music either. Big names like Young Thug, Lil Durk, T Grizzly, and Lil Uzi Vert were early fans of his work. In fact, before most regular fans even knew who Melly was, he had already become one of their favorite artists. But just as his star was rising, Melly found himself in trouble again. Right after his 18th birthday, he got arrested for possession of marijuana, possession of a weapon or ammunition by a convicted felon, and drug paraphernalia. His longtime friend Cortland Henry, aka YNW Bortland, was also arrested for similar charges. Fortunately, they both managed to post bail, and they were released the next day. But as Melly's legal troubles were piling up, Murder on My Mind was becoming a phenomenon. With the song blowing up, it was only a matter of time before he decided to shoot a music video for it. The video was intense to say the least. It depicted the aftermath of a crime scene where Melly's character had shot a friend who then slowly dies in his arms. The lyrics were eerily detailed and have since been psychoanalyzed by many, especially because of how they seem to foreshadow real-life events. Lines like, "I didn't even mean to shoot him, he just caught me by surprise, I reloaded my pistol, cocked it back, and shot him twice," paint a vivid picture of a tragic scenario, one that seemed all too real. In his first interview with No Jumper, Melly's demeanor was pretty strange, almost unsettling, but he dropped some interesting insights. For instance, he got the names of his two best friends tattooed on his face. Normally, you'd think tattoos like that are to honor someone who's passed away, but in this case, his friends were alive and well, for now.
You know, I got Sat Chase right here, that's my brother and my twin.
Okay.
I got Juvie.
Juvie?
Brother.
Just a lot of your friends who passed?
Yeah. Nah, them my nigga right there.
Oh, my bad. I wouldn't get none of my friends tattooed on my face until they died.
Yeah,
I'm not a good friend like you are, apparently.
As Melly was finishing up his album We All Shine, one of Kanye West's writers, Sci-Hi the Prince, introduced Ye to Melly's music. Kanye was so impressed that he flew Melly out to LA to collaborate. Their first meeting was pretty funny. Melly, his manager 100K Track, and Kanye spent 2 hours in the studio just vibing to music before Ye finally asked Melly to play some of his tracks. When he did, Kanye immediately fell in love with mixed personalities. It resonated with Ye likely because of his own struggles with bipolar disorder, a condition Melly himself has also been diagnosed with. They ended up filming a music video together with Cole Bennett, and when it dropped, it was a huge moment for Melly. Collaborating with Kanye was like securing a golden ticket to superstardom, especially since Melly was only the second SoundCloud artist Ye had worked with before Donda, the first being Lil Pump.
Personalities. One day she's happy, then she's mad at me.
Everything seemed to be lining up perfectly for Melly. He was on the brink of something massive, with his career set to soar to new heights. But just as things were looking up, an incredibly dark chapter was about to unfold, one that would cast a long shadow over his rising star. On October 26, 2018, something incredibly tragic and suspicious happened that changed everything. YNW Bortlen, whose real name is Cortland Henry, showed up at Memorial Miramar Hospital with 2 dead bodies in his car. The victims, Anthony Williams, aka YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., aka YNW Juvie, were both close childhood friends of YNW Melly. They were found in the car, slumped over in the front and back seats. The vehicle itself had taken 8 bullets on the right side, with 1 additional shot through the back window. When the police arrived and started asking questions, Bortlen claimed it was the result of a drive-by shooting. He said they had just left the New Era recording studio in Fort Lauderdale, drove west on 595, then south on 75, and eventually exited onto Miramar Parkway, heading west. According to him, as they were driving onto Southwest 160th, a car pulled up on their right side and started firing. Bortlen said he ducked down to avoid getting hit, and when he finally sat up, he saw his friends bleeding out, so he rushed them to the hospital, which conveniently was just around the corner. However, something about his story didn't quite add up. After Bortlen's report, detectives and officers shut down the area and walked a 12-block radius on foot, searching for any sign of gunshots or evidence of a shooting. But they found nothing. Not a single report of gunfire or any evidence that a shooting had taken place where Bortlen claimed it did. When they tested Bortlen for gunshot residue, the results came back negative. The situation got even murkier when police questioned Dontavius Withers, the roommate of Sack Chaser and Juvie. Withers told the police that when they left the studio, there were 2 cars, a gray Jeep where the murders happened and a red Mitsubishi, which he claimed he and Melly were in. According to him, he went straight home and only found out later that his roommates were dead. He also said he didn't know where Melly was at the time. But as it turned out, Withers wasn't being entirely honest. It was later revealed that before the police even showed up, he was actually with Melly at Fredo Bang's house. Withers eventually changed his story, admitting that Melly was in the gray Jeep when they left the studio, but then got into the Mitsubishi around Sheridan Avenue after Withers Snapchatted him to come pick him up. However, when the police obtained security footage from the manager of the recording studio, it clearly showed that Melly had left in the gray Jeep, sitting in the back left seat. Remember, the victims were found in the front and back right seats, so Withers' story didn't hold up.
Excuse me, you're able to see?
The investigation deepened when the police found a single .40 caliber shell casing on the floorboard of the Jeep, right where Melly had been sitting. The casing was inside a white plastic bag. Now, if this really had been a drive-by, there wouldn't have been shell casings inside the car. This evidence pointed to the shots being fired from inside the vehicle, not outside. To make things even more damning, police were able to obtain T-Mobile cell phone records that tracked the locations of Melly, Bortlen, Sack Chaser, and Juvie minute by minute. These records showed that all 4 were in the car together at the time of the murders. The records confirmed that the Jeep exited on Miramar Parkway but then turned north on Southwest 184th and later west on Pines Boulevard around 3:53 a.m. before turning back east at 4:06 a.m. This route would have given them enough time to drive all the way out to the outskirts of the city where there's nothing around and back. The records also showed that they were driving around the area west of I-75 before arriving at the hospital at 4:35 a.m. Interestingly, Melly's cell phone separated from the car at 4:32 a.m. just 3 minutes before the Jeep pulled into the hospital. This timing led to speculation that Melly and Bortlen had spent time driving around, possibly trying to get their story straight, before Melly hopped out of the car and Bortlen took the bodies to the hospital. Shortly after, Melly FaceTimed his girlfriend, telling her they were victims of a drive-by and that he needed to be picked up, which confirmed he was at the scene of the crime. The police quickly realized that the stories they were being told didn't match up. There were too many conflicting statements and some people were clearly lying. They knew they had to jump on this investigation immediately. The very next day, as news of the incident spread, YNW Melly took to Instagram and Facebook to publicly grieve, posting that they took my brothers from me over jealousy. Despite the heavy cloud of suspicion hanging over him, Melly continued on with his career as if nothing had happened. On December 4th, he released a documentary on his YouTube channel which featured Sack Chaser and Juvie and showed how close they were growing up. The documentary also included a segment that highlighted Melly's obsession with guns. At the end of the film, a statement appeared on the screen. 4 days after the completion of this film, YNW Melly and his friends were a target of a drive-by shooting. Not long after, Melly appeared in a Genius video explaining the lyrics to his hit song Murder on My Mind. In the video, he talked about his love for guns and claimed he wasn't a human murderer.
I murder, and I murder the beat. I am not no human.
But on January 3rd, 2019, things took a sharp turn when YNW Melly was arrested in Florida for weed charges. The mugshot that followed was chilling. Melly's sinister smile spread across the internet like wildfire. It went viral, putting him in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Fast forward 3 weeks, and while he was still behind bars, the track Mixed Personalities dropped, complete with a lyrical Lemonade video. This was a big deal for both Melly and Cole Bennett because at that point, Kanye was the first big-name superstar rapper Cole had worked with. The song blew up, going mega viral, and suddenly Melly's name was everywhere. This was a pivotal moment. Melly was on the brink of becoming a mainstream artist, someone everyone in the industry had their eyes on. But just when it seemed like his career was about to reach new heights, things took a dark turn. On February 13th, less than a month after Mixed Personalities dropped, the investigation into the deaths of YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie concluded. The police now had enough evidence to officially issue a warrant for Melly's arrest in connection with the murders of his 2 childhood friends. Despite proclaiming his innocence, Melly turned himself in immediately. Just 2 weeks later, the evidence against him was laid out and it didn't look good. For starters, YNW Bortland had lied about where the crime actually took place. He told the police that the drive-by happened on Southwest 160th Street, so they brought out a canine unit to investigate the scene. The dog didn't find a thing though, which led officers to search a more rural area they suspected might be the real crime scene. That's when the dog hit pay dirt, discovering 8 .40 caliber shell casings and 2 types of glass matching the front passenger and rear passenger windows of the Jeep the victims were in. It became clear the crime scene wasn't even close to where Bortland had reported it. This new evidence prompted investigators to take another hard look at the vehicle. They decided to do a trajectory analysis using rods and strings to map out the bullet paths. What they found blew Bortland's story out of the water. There was no way this could have been a drive-by shooting. The bullet paths and the wounds on the victims told a different story, one where the shots came from inside the car. The police suspected that Melly and Bortland had parked the Jeep somewhere, shot their friends, and then staged the scene to look like a drive-by before heading to the hospital. When the autopsy reports came back, they painted a grim picture. The lethal shots were fired from inside the vehicle, and all signs pointed to the left rear passenger seat where Melly had been sitting as the origin of those shots. The evidence indicated that the first shot was fired at close range, right to the head execution style. Additional shots hit the victims after they were already down, which suggests they were deliberate, cold-blooded killings. As if that wasn't enough, both victims had bullet wounds that followed a left-to-right trajectory, directly contradicting Bortland's story about a drive-by from the right side. Everything pointed to the idea that Melly had shot his friends point blank, and then he and Bortland drove around trying to cook up a believable story. To make matters worse, Melly's music didn't do him any favors, with tracks glorifying guns, murder, and even mentioning his alter ego Melvin, who he described as reckless and unpredictable. Melly wasn't exactly coming across as an innocent guy. In June 2019, prosecutors announced they were seeking the death penalty against Melly. Despite this, Melly seemed unfazed. He even declared in June that he'd be home soon and was seen smiling in court.
Jamel Demons, known as YNW Melly or Melly, has been seen smiling and laughing in court.
His third studio album, Melly vs. Melvin, dropped while he was still locked up. The album did pretty well, going gold and spending 31 weeks on the Billboard 200 albums chart. In March 2020, Melly was back in court smiling again. But in April, his situation took a turn for the worse when he tested positive for COVID-19. Even though he was sick, reports started surfacing about Melly getting into multiple fights with both inmates and guards. This led to him losing his privileges and being sent to solitary confinement for 70 days, a rough situation for anyone, let alone someone already dealing with serious legal troubles. Meanwhile, YNW Bortland, facing the same serious charges, was somehow granted house arrest, a highly unusual outcome in a case of this magnitude. Despite everything, Melly's team kept pushing out music. In 2021, they released Just a Matter of Slime, which featured an impressive lineup of guest artists. They were clearly trying to keep his music alive and maintain the support of his fans, but Melly's physical health continued to decline. Reports emerged that he had an abscess in his lower jaw, a chronic infection likely caused by his diamond implants. To make matters worse, he was denied basic dental care like visits to a dentist, a regular toothbrush, or even floss, because they were considered potential weapons. People started speculating that the jail was intentionally trying to break him down physically and mentally while he awaited trial. As 2022 came to a close, Melly took to Instagram to post long, desperate messages begging for help. He accused specific officers of abusing their power, mistreating him, cutting off his phone access, and only letting him out of his cell for 1 hour a day. He claimed they were watching his every move, threatening him and making sure he was completely isolated from his family. These posts painted a picture of the inhumane treatment Melly was enduring in jail. Finally, in 2023, Melly's trial got underway, but after roughly 2 days of jury deliberations, the trial ended in a mistrial. The jury couldn't come to a unanimous verdict, leaving Melly in limbo. Earlier this year, after 5 long years behind bars, Melly was transferred to the Paul Rain Detention Facility in Pompano Beach. His retrial was initially set for October 9, 2023, but it's been delayed multiple times due to the prosecution's appeals. Melly, who has been denied bond, still faces the possibility of the death penalty if found guilty. If it turns out that Melly did commit these crimes, it would undoubtedly go down as one of the most shocking and heinous events in rap history.